know the Astros kryptonite, and his name is Kyle Bradish. Of all people, somebody that was once a Angels pitcher in the farm system is now somebody that knows how to pitch against the Astros. In 16 and two-thirds innings this year, he's allowed 4 hits, 16 strikeouts, and he's allowed 0 earned runs to the Houston Astros, a team that's probably going to the World Series. And it's only one game, guys, and we're going to talk about this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. Find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you at when you're not watching the Astros be shut out by some dude?
In Rignet Odor. What a comedy of errors. Anyways, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me at Stros41 Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive. Always Stros.
All right, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts, and thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Whether it's on YouTube, make sure you go and subscribe to us and give us a big like when you're at it. And go ahead and listen to us on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, just on your way to work, and just make us your first listen every day. Thank you, guys. And we really appreciate that. I don't think we take enough time to thank our Locked On Astros nation. Just thank you for listening every day. We really do appreciate it. And we do appreciate y'all's comments, whether it's through Twitter, through YouTube, and everything. We may not always reply to them, but we do see them, and we do appreciate everything you say. So I know that everybody was hoping that Justin Verlander would have the 3 starts remaining to reach 20 wins on the season. Granted, 20 wins doesn't necessarily mean Cy Young. I think they're looking more for him kind of finishing among the greats, Pedro Martinez, and then Blake Snell, in terms of the great ERA finishers in terms of baseball. But I think that what he's doing still at his age, following the Tommy John surgery, I think he's going to get a lot of votes for Cy Young, and I think he is probably the favorite at this moment. I think the only guy who I think will get some votes is Dylan Cease, and I think Framber Valdez is kind of trying to sneak in a little bit, but I think that two front runners are Dylan Cease and Justin Verlander.
Yeah, I think the national writers, they're not going to go with a 1-2 Astros combo just because it's not Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. But you know what? Garrett Cole actually has more strikeouts than anybody in the American League. That's what's amazing. And Framber Valdez, though, Eric, let's just say his next 2 starts are amazing. Let's say he strikes out 9 or 10 in both of them, right? We know Dylan Cease is on some kind of a mad tear right now in his last 15, 20 starts. And I think he gets more attention from the national writers because he's with the Chicago White Sox. They had so much promise, yada, yada, yada. But Framber Valdez, I think, very much deserves to be in the discussion. I do like how MLB put out the top 5 contenders. I would have put Framber number 3 over McClanahan, to be quite honest, because of what McClanahan's not been doing lately. Even though McClanahan has been dominant. And I know you and Ulysses talked about that. And I know Ulysses talked about the series against the Rays was an outlier. That wasn't typical. And they hadn't been swept since like 2019 or something.
But he also said the Rays had the best pitching staff. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Ulysses, you may have a little Rays bias there, but I get it. I do like the ties to Tampa. That was fun. See, I didn't get to discuss that. That was really cool. But when I looked up at the score, oh my gosh, I was like 2-0. Oh, for them. Oh, that's right. Justin Verlander's on the mound. All right. I just thought they were going to do what they did against the Rays. Don't score a lot of runs and all of a sudden break out a 3 or 4 spot. Kyle Tucker go deep. I mean, what? The Orioles can't give Trey Mancini a meatball over the middle of the plate and let Trey Mancini like his homecoming. Now, was there a big ovation for him when he came up to the
Yeah.
plate for the first time?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, but I
Okay.
do want to talk a little bit more about the Cy Young race. Right now, Justin Verlander is 17-3 with a 1.82 ERA. Opponent's batting average is a 188. He's pitched 163 innings. This is big. He has 20 quality starts on the season. I know that's less than Framber Valdez. We know this. Dylan Cease on the season is 14-7 with a 2.13 ERA. He has a same opponent's batting average, 188. He's pitched more innings. I think he's been healthy all year, 173 innings. He has 15 quality starts. Now, Framber Valdez is 16-5 with a 2.57 ERA. He has a 213 opponent's batting average. He's pitched 185 innings and 2/3 innings, and he also has the 26 quality starts. So yes, if you look at every one of them, there's something that says, I think this guy should probably get it. Definitely between the two Astros guys, because nobody's been more reliable. Nobody's made more starts than Framber Valdez, especially with the quality starts. But if you're looking at what Justin Verlander's doing at his age, especially with the Cy Young, everything that's going on there, you have to give him the kind of nod there. And I think that's what a lot of national writers are going to do. So.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Eric. I think that's an accurate take. I think, too, with Framber, this being kind of his career year, he's going to have more of these. I mean, you look back on the Oswalts, you look back on the Mike Scotts, the Nolan Ryans, Justin Verlander. You just look at the great pitchers in Astros history, Astros folklore, all the way back to J.R. Richard, the guys at their prime, Larry Durker, guys at their prime. Framber Valdez is the type of pitcher that I think for the next 4 or 5 or even 6 years will be a pitcher that will always be in contention. And I believe that I predict that he's going to win a Cy Young within the next 3 years, just because he's going to get better. He's going to learn more. He's going to make adjustments. The league's going to make adjustments, but he's going to keep grinding. And this team for the next 2 or 3 years is going to be a contender. So I think that's going to help. And the fact that he's a ground ball pitcher helps him a lot in a lot of these smaller ballparks. I would like to think, though, that Framber Valdez may actually have even more success back then with the more cavernous ballparks because of the type of hits that he does give up. But, I mean, this guy deserves all the credit. This guy deserves all the accolades just for doing great. And I think it's a simple fact, like you said, Verlander's age, coming back from Tommy John, being out for 2 years, having a career year, better than his Cy Young and MVP year, statistically speaking. I think Justin Verlander takes it because of those factors. If Verlander was a Dylan Cease type pitcher, I think Framber Valdez could easily squeak into more consideration. But that is an accurate take. I like that because I think that's where everybody is right now that just watches baseball, even if it's a few games a week. That makes sense.
And it's amazing that the Rays only scored 2 runs against the Astros while being swept. And then they go play the Blue Jays, who's a good team in their own right, and they score 10 runs. And it was a slugfest over there. And so baseball is just weird. And then the Astros score all these runs and then get shut out by some guy with a 5-something ERA. Baseball is just so stupid. That's
Okay.
why you don't know what happens in the playoffs.
I'm holding up 4 fingers.
Okay.
Bradish has 4 wins.
Yeah,
2
of them against Astros.
So if my math is right, which I'm terrible at math and you're the math guy, if Bradish faced the Astros 10 times, he would be what? So if he has
10.
4 wins,
So
it'd
be 12 and whatever.
Yeah, I mean this guy, it's but that is why this sport is so great, because sometimes pitchers just have a team's number. I mean, Framber Valdez obviously has Mike Trout's number. Mike Trout doesn't like facing Valdez. And we've got certain pitchers of ours that face against Ohtani really well. And it's vice versa. You got your Seagers and your Pujols against the Astros. You just got certain guys. And you know what? You got to tip your hat to this kid because he hasn't been great most of the season.
Yeah, and I think the Astros are ready to win in the playoffs this year, and I wonder what the odds makers are saying about this. So let's talk about BetOnline.
So betonline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Yes, and going into the postseason for Major League Baseball, the Astros, how far will they go? Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcast, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the betonline.net. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
With the playoffs coming, Brett, I mean, I know tickets are kind of hard to get from the Astros. You have to be part of the raffle system, and then you have to get it by a certain time before they sell out. So what if you're not lucky to get the tickets from the Astros? Where could you get the tickets from?
I'm glad you asked because there's a place that I discovered back in 2021 called Simple Seats. It's the place for Houston sports fans to buy tickets at the lowest possible prices. I know you're actually going to a comedy show that you got tickets from Simple Seats. What's great is they don't have any surprise fees. They're not gonna tack on 20% at the end. They don't charge any fees at all. They want to save fans money. And you save money, you get to go to more games. You don't just have to go, oh, can we pick game one or game 4 of the ALDS? Which game do we pick? Or do we pick, you know what I'm saying? It's like you get to go to as many games as you want. Concerts, you get to go to A&M games, Dynamo games, Texans games, UT, U of H, and more is coming. They have these zone seating specials, which I like to talk about because I don't really sometimes care exactly where I sit. I just want to sit in a certain section. If I pick zone seating, they pick the seat for me and I get a discount. So not only am I getting a discount on an already reasonable price ticket, I'm not getting charged up fees. Yeah, I mean, there's taxes, but that's everywhere. But there's no crazy fees. So this is what you need to do. If you want a deal like this, and this sounds like something that appeals to you, like saving money and attending your favorite sporting event, ditch the ticket fees and check out Simple Seats next time when you're looking at a Houston sporting event. Use a promo code Locked On 10 to save $10 off in your first purchase of $50 or more. Simple Seats, better prices, no fees. It's that simple.
All righty, so I'm gonna put this up real quick. This was a moment today. Trey Mancini, you asked about it earlier, and Trey Mancini had a standing ovation from Orioles fans. This is a guy that battled stage 3 cancer. This is a guy that Orioles, Baltimore people, non sports fans in Baltimore, they really rallied around this guy. This is a guy that, in the public eye, really just faced a fight for his life. And then he came back to play baseball. I know a lot of Astros fans are like, well, he's not hitting well since he's come to the Astros. He went off that hot streak. Now he's not hitting that well. But we have to remember where he's come from. And so, but he's become part of the Houston Astros organization, but the fans love him. I saw a whole bunch of signs that I guess they called him Boom Boom here, and that there's a whole bunch of different fan signs. So this city had a lot of respect for this guy and for what he went through. And so, yes, they did give him a standing ovation, and it was a long one. And to their credit, I think everybody just kind of stepped aside and let him do it. And so that was the only time, I believe. I don't think it was like every time he came up to bat,
Right.
because then it was just like, this is the competition. We don't want to keep on doing it. But that was a good moment. And before today, Mancini said, the fans and I have such a good relationship. They're always going to be a special part of my baseball experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to it more than anything else. My relationship with the city transcends baseball, and it always will, because it's not just about what he did on the baseball field. It's about what he fought out off the field. And so that's what all the cards they probably sent him and everything. So this was a big moment for Orioles fans, because he was somebody that right before they traded him, his last home game, he hit a inside the park home run. Then he got a curtain call. Little did Orioles fans know that was the last time they're going to actually see their left fielder, or not left fielder, because they moved the walls back. We'll have to talk about that. That looks so different. But
Yeah.
definitely, it was a touching moment for not just Orioles fans, but for Astros fans as well.
Yeah, and if I could just kind of, put a final cap on that, because to me, the way I judge a player and whether I root for a player or not, whether they don an Astros uniform or not, to me, a mark of a real player, a true athlete, is someone who's made a mark and an impact off the field. And even for myself as a teacher and as a coach and as someone who's always worked with students, there's nothing more satisfying and nothing more gratifying as a human being than when you hear someone tell you how much of an impact you made on their life. And a lot of those fans, they don't have the chance to walk up to him face to face, but they made signs. And a player's impact off the field to me is just as important as a player's impact on the field. And I love that. I love that they got him. I really hope that Trey Mancini stays in a Houston Astros uniform because he fits the club culture. He fits the type of person that he is, the community person. And, he's never going to leave Baltimore. I mean, he's always going to go back to Baltimore. I'm sure there are things with Detroit that you still see Justin Verlander connected to. I know even when Albert Pujols left St. Louis, when players leave a city that they've been endeared to, they never lose their heart. And that is a testimony to who he is. And so, that's a great moment. It just stinks that he couldn't, hit a home run for us. And, all the naysayers and all the people doubting him, just because you come to the Astros, that doesn't mean you're going to have instant success. And I mean, look at Jose Siri. He's hitting almost 100 points higher than he was here because why? He's getting more chances to play. Mancini's not playing every single day. He's
Right.
playing more often. And so we got to give this guy a little bit of slack. I think, Eric, if you can sign him in a very team-friendly deal and you can keep that consistent bat, that guy's only going to get better as time goes on because he is a character guy.
So Kyle Bradish has shut out the Astros in 16 and 2/3 innings. He's struck out 16 Astros, and he's only allowed 4 hits. So we got to do this. It's been a while.
Thoughts by Dusty.
Alrighty, yeah, I messed that one up. But this is what
It
Dusty
is.
Baker had to say. Sometimes it's him. Sometimes it's us. Most of the time, it's not us. This case, definitely, it was him.
Him being who?
Bradish.
Oh, I was like, wait, is he talking? I'm sorry. Okay. I was like, him. Wait,
Do I need to say it again? Sometimes it's
no,
him. Sometimes
right?
it's us. Most of the time, it's not us. This case, definitely, it was him. That was even. That was,
Dusty. Yeah. Dusty being Dusty. Dusty. Look, my goal on this show, my goal has been since he became manager is to get him on this show. I would do an hour podcast with just Dusty Baker and you and I just asking him questions because I've heard he's got stories. And you know what? I really hope the Astros win, Eric. I think this team is one of the most talented teams top to bottom, even with the 4 at the bottom or 3 at the bottom that aren't really hitting. The pitching staff, I was looking at the 2018, 2017 roster, Eric. Go look at that 20, and we're going to bring this up. Go look at the 2017 outfield compared to our outfield.
right.
Go look at the 2017 bullpen compared to this bullpen. I'm sorry. Outside of those few starters and a couple guys having a banner year, there's no way that you would say that that team is better than this team. The bench players, the utility guys we have, I'm telling you, man, the Aledmys Diaz, I didn't get to talk about him. This guy, I said mid-season, was going to have some key postseason moments, and he has been great since the All-Star break.
And
So,
Baker went on to say, we got to figure him out sooner or later, but we don't have to figure him out yet.
yeah, we don't have to worry about him this year because good job, Dusty. Worry about him in 2023
Yeah.
or just
So,
trade for him.
or hopefully none of the Astros competitors, because you know that the Angels, the teams that are going to be playing the Astros a lot, are be like, maybe if we get this guy, we can actually beat the Astros. So,
Yeah,
like
but
the
he's only
Yankees.
one guy. Well, I mean, he's only one guy. You know, he's
But if
only
you
one
throw him in
pitcher.
game 1 and game 5 of a ALDS.
But he's got to be there though. He's not there. So let's not try to make trouble where there is no trouble, Eric. Come on.
Oh, I know. I'm just being silly. But so, by the way, speaking of that, Mauricio Debon got the first hit in the 6th inning. That was kind of we're so used to Astros pitchers no hitting people. It feels so weird to be on the other side of the corn. Not corn, the coin. So it's just that stupid corn song on
Corn.
TikTok.
It's corn. It's got juice. We need to
Anyway,
do it. We need to do a TikTok. We need to do a Locked On Astros version of the corn song. Let's try to get that planned out.
okay, we can. So, but definitely, then you had Jeremy Pena get another hit later in the game. But that's all the offense for the game. Bradish was just on top of his game, and props to him. But now the Astros need to just move on. One thing I do want to move before we move on from this game, Pedro Martinez in 2000 had a 1.74 ERA. Then Blake Snell in 2018 had a 1.89 ERA. This is a minimum of 150 innings pitched. So right now, Justin Verlander is at a 1.82 ERA. So if he can maintain this, he's going to be a member of a elite crowd. This is something that doesn't happen that much. A sub 2 ERA. That's gonna raise some Cy Young flags right there anyway. So what Justin Verlander needs to do, and what the Astros are definitely going to be looking at, is trying to figure out how they're going to figure out when he's going to pitch next. I don't think that they're going to probably pitch him against the Rays in the next in that series, and I think that they're going to probably try to work it out where maybe he pitches in the final game. Maybe they'll
Against the
pitch him.
Phillies?
Yeah. So they're going to try to, because he's going to pitch in game 1 of the ALDS. So they're going to try to schedule it where he stays on semi-normal rest until the final game of the season, maybe. And that way he can be sort of on as much, but
Wow.
you can't really do that much because the week off for that wild card series is going to really hurt the Astros because they have that bye.
So I would think if you wanted him to pitch another game before the playoffs, like you said, if you don't want him pitching against Tampa,
Yeah.
he would have to pitch that Monday, October 3rd against Philadelphia. You could you could hold him out longer. You could have him on the 5th, the final game of the season against Philadelphia. Then you've got a whole week. So, I mean,
We need 2 games. He needs to pitch in 2 more games, right?
well, right, he does, but I don't think there's any way you avoid Tampa if he's going to pitch in 2 games because
Okay.
Arizona, there's only 2 games. There's literally, so they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Baltimore, then they're off on the 26th. Arizona, 2 games, then the 29th, then Tampa, the 30th, the 1st, the 2nd, then the last 3 games against the Phillies. So, yeah, so
1,
there's
2,
no,
3.
yeah,
He'll pitch versus the Diamondbacks. He'll pitch one of those games versus
okay.
Diamondbacks, and then he'll
So he would
pitch.
have to pitch on the 28th, which would be Wednesday.
Yes.
All right. Well,
So
hey,
1,
man,
2, 3,
let's
or
just
he can
let's
do
just avoid.
27th, and then he'll have to pitch one of the games versus the Phillies, or maybe. Yeah, I just don't want them. I think if just in case we do have to face the Rays, let's not have him exposed to the Rays because I think that he'll probably have to pitch twice if it goes to 5 games. Hopefully, he doesn't go to 5 games.
You know what? I love Ulysses' confidence in his team and this being an outlier, but this is also a different Astros team than what the Rays were used to facing. The Astros have never swept at Tropicana Field, ever, as far as I can remember. I mean, now I may be wrong, and someone may need to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure the Astros haven't ever swept them at Tropicana Field because they only had like 4 wins going into this. They're at the Trop. This is a
Mhm.
different team, Eric. This is a whole different team. So we're not talking about the Rays of 2 or 3 years ago. So I think if we face the Rays, I don't see it going 5. I see it going 4 max. And who's to say they can't do what they did again in the regular season? They faced good pitching. they neutralized their best hitters. They did have a couple of hitters that were out, but at the end of the day, the Astros, as long as they're doing what they're doing for the most part right now in September, and they're hitting home runs. Kyle Tucker's getting RBIs. Yordan Alvarez is hitting home runs. Bregman's up there making defensive plays, and their pitchers are just doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, this may be a waltz to the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I'm saying I think this is the best team talent-wise that's qualified for the postseason with the Astros out of all their teams. And I know that's saying a lot, but I'm willing to go down that road.
So this year, the rule is that a team cannot carry more than 13 pitchers on the
Right.
playoff roster. Last year, during the ALDS, the Astros only carried 12 pitchers. So are they going to go with a one pitcher short during the ALDS? That we've talked about possibly leaving off a starter like a Luis Garcia, somebody who's not going to be starting. So that's something that we can definitely talk about in a different podcast, but I believe that Hunter Brown probably has earned his role in this situation, and definitely in a 5-game series, you do have a off day. I believe it's between games 1 and 2, and in between games 2 and 3. So you do have ability to, if you have to, let's say your game 1 starter has to leave a little bit earlier and you have to use your bullpen, you do have a day in between it. So I think that the Astros may use that to their advantage and maybe go with the extra bat off the bench. But the Astros don't really have a lot of platoon players. I mean, yeah, I guess we do in center field. I guess catching is kind of a platoon situation as well. You definitely want to go with the third catcher. So maybe they will.
But why would you? I you don't need a third catcher.
Dusty Baker does.
Well, I don't know. Like, okay, isn't it so 13 pitchers, right? But
Mhm.
aren't you only allowed a max of 14 position players?
It's 26 players.
26 players. Okay, so you
So
have to
that'd be
do
14 position players if you're going to do 12 pitchers. They
yeah,
don't
I just
they don't really care how
okay.
many
Okay.
position players. You can have as
Okay.
many position players as you want. If you want to take 5 pitchers, I mean, I'm sure there's some rule, but the pitchers is what they really care about.
Okay. Yeah, I think right now what would be best for the Astros is making sure they have, if they feel like they need a piggyback starter. But then again, it's going to be who they match up against, what team wins, and
Right.
how their pitchers are going to line up for
Right.
that series. So, you and I want to do some like rotation shows and stuff, and we may kind of have to like we can speculate all we want, but we may have a better idea if we wait till we get towards the Philadelphia series, right?
Right.
Because then we know, like, okay, this is how it's going to set up. But stay tuned, folks, because we're going to have some different shows coming out. We're going to talk about X Factor players, guys that are going to be unsung heroes. We're going to talk about guys in the playoffs that we expect to have banner playoff seasons and, key pitchers in the playoffs. So we've got a bunch of different ideas that Eric and I are floating around in our production talk. So stay tuned. It's not going to just be the games. It's going to be other stuff leading into the postseason. That's why we are your team every day, and we're the best and most listened to Astros podcast on the planet.
All right. So if you look at some health updates, Jose Altuve said that X-rays on his left elbow were negative after he got hit by the pitch yesterday. He's fine, and he could have played today, but we already talked about it 2 days ago that Dusty Baker was already scheduling some of his regulars days off as they've already clinched. So he expects to play Friday in Baltimore. The key word is he expects to play Friday in Baltimore. Now, does Dusty Baker expect him to play Friday in Baltimore? That's the question. Also, there is a big situation. I don't know how much we need to address this, but Forrest Whitley was scratched from his start in AAA Sugarland with what was described as, it happens even AAA, right shoulder discomfort.
Discomfort.
So basically, he already missed some time this year with what was described as right shoulder inflammation. Now after the after the fact, we know it. But now we know that he's having some more issues. In his time this year, I thought he was doing better, but I guess in 33 innings this year, he has a 7.09 ERA. He's thrown a total of 40 innings this year after missing all of last year after recovering from Tommy John. He hasn't even reached 100 major league innings since reaching baseball in 2018. He's got 99 and 2/3 innings. So I'm not going to say what I want to say, but it's getting kind of frustrating. Just when you think this guy's about to make that next step, it just kind of, I mean, he has all the stuff in the world, but he just can't.
I look, I would love more than anything for Forrest Whitley to have success to find his way to a major league mound because of all the adversity he's been through. I think some of it's self-inflicted, but I think he's just had a tough road. He has a ton of expectations, and we all know that when you have as many expectations as you have, that's not only a mental grind, but it's a physical grind on top of that. And so I hope he makes it. At this point, I'm just a wait and see guy. I don't like, for me, I'm I'm kind of indifferent with Forrest Whitley now. I want him to be successful. I want him to succeed. I want him to be a professional pitcher for the Houston Astros. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And that's just life. And that's a tough thing to say as an Astros enthusiast, as myself and a commentator, Eric, but it may not work out for him. And I hope that statement right there is wrong. And I hope he proves it wrong. And I hope he gets out there one day. But there's other people we've got to focus on that I think give us a brighter future and some more upside. But good luck to Forrest Whitley in his recovery. We hope that next year he comes back strong and that he's able to at some point contribute.
Yeah, definitely. And happy birthday to Larry Durker. And Jeremy Pena, the Astros shortstop, is 24 years old. So happy birthday to him. If you're, of course, this is on Thursday, the 22nd. If you're listening on Friday, it's not their birthday anymore. But Larry Durker was one of my favorite managers. I think I liked his laid back style. And I didn't really get to watch him as a pitcher that much because I was a little bit before my time. But as a manager, I really just liked his laid back style, the Hawaiian shirts, and just everything that he kind of represented in that time, because that was kind of the Jeff Bagwell time. And so everything was cool there. But yeah, it just was frustrating with today's game. Justin Verlander still went out there and he did stretch himself out a little bit. He did pitch, what was it? 6 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts, 93 pitches, 70 strikes. So his ERA is still 1.82. He did run into some trouble in, I believe it was in the second inning. Yeah, the second inning. But he did manage to settle down. So overall, it was a good day for Justin Verlander. He can't be perfect all the time. But in this game, the offense just fell asleep. I don't know if it was Bradish. I don't know if it was
It was
the
Bradish.
Astros.
Look,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, Eric. He is a professional pitcher, and he's pitching against one of the best offenses in the league, against some of the most prolific hitters of his time. And he may just have that special gear that he flips. Now, you hope as the opponent that a kid like Bradish doesn't figure that out in the rest of his starts and become a Cy Young candidate. But he's got the possibility to do better things and to be a great pitcher. He's got that potential. But then again, he may be the guy that he rises for the special team, the special occasion, and that's when he shows up. But that right there, what it's going to do? It's going to keep him on a major league roster. It's going to
Yeah.
keep him, and it's going to keep him signing contracts. And good for the kid. Good for the kid. But let's calm down the Astros a little bit. Next time, let us get at least 5 hits and a few runs. Like let it be respectable a little bit. But there's nothing you can do because Verlander only gave up 2 runs. That's the lead here. He only gave up 2 runs, Eric.
Right.
He didn't get shelled. He didn't get frustrated. I bet you he's pissed that his offense didn't show up. But that's baseball. That
Right.
is baseball. Bless you.
That was a cough, actually, but thank you.
Oh,
Apparently, it's Carlos Correa's birthday as well. I totally forgot
okay.
about that. So, whatever. Happy birthday. So, I didn't know they shared the same birthday. So,
Hey,
let's
Carlos,
move.
is it your time for the playoffs? Oh, I'm sorry. You won't make the playoffs. Sorry, Correa.
Oh, wow. All right. So, tomorrow's game, it's going to be Jose Urquidy versus Kramer, Dean Kramer. So,
What? Are you laughing at me?
No, the Kramer. I don't
Oh,
know if that's how you say his name, but I'm just going with Kramer just because Jerry Seinfeld. So,
okay.
but anyway, Kramer, we'll just go with that pronunciation, is 7-5 with a 3.33 ERA. He has 75 strikeouts and 105 innings pitch. And then we know what Jose Urquidy's doing. He's trying to basically, like I said in a Spaces yesterday, I kind of jumped in as I was editing the podcast. I think that Jose Urquidy is not looking to prove it to the fans tomorrow. I don't think he's really looking to prove it to Dusty Baker. I think he's, after two bad starts, I think he's looking to prove it to himself, that get his confidence back up. So he is 13-7 with a 3.96 ERA with 127 strikeouts. So I think it's very important, especially with the playoffs looming, that if Urquidy is the fourth starter, I still think I'm kind of switched to Javier needs to be the fourth starter. But if Urquidy is the fourth starter in playoffs, tomorrow is very important for him to get that I can do it, I can throw strikes, I can get people out attitude, because we need that. We need that killer instinct in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up my thoughts on this. You want Urquidy to be successful, but to me, what Christian Javier has done in putting himself in the top three in like strikeouts per nine, and just the way he's dominated the two starts, the combined no hitter, the 2 games of 14 strikeouts back to back, and being able to piggyback him in the playoffs and put him as a fourth starter. I just think that Christian Javier right now makes sense. I think if you get to the ALCS and let's say Javier has a hiccup, you can always in the World Series, you can put Javier in the bullpen, you could start Urquidy and then put Javier behind him. I don't think that puts you at any disadvantage. But as Mr. Wynn said here, he's given up in the last 11 innings, he's given up 12 runs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. And
That's what I'm saying.
so,
He needs
yeah.
to prove it to, not to
And
us,
see,
not to Dusty
right.
Baker, because Baker knows what this guy can do.
See, here's the thing. I don't think Urquidy's lost confidence in himself. I don't, Urquidy doesn't come across to me the way that Framber did before his whole like changing the mental side of his game. Urquidy is so cool, calm, and collect on on the on the on the mound, no matter what happens. He never gets frazzled. I just think he's going through a tough stretch. I mean, sometimes baseball players figure out other baseball players, and you know that he's watching film. You know that he's watching his pitches that get hit. He knows he's watching the innings where where they're scoring. He's watching the innings where he's shutting them out. And so he'll come in. He's a bulldog. He'll fight for it. He'll get a quality start. But the bats have to be there. And I'm done.
All right. And by the way, I know the name is Kramer, but I just wanted to say Kramer instead. So, anyway, that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Hopefully, the Astros are able to figure out the Orioles, because I promised Ulysses that we would sweep them, but apparently I can't fulfill that promise. So that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. You can find Brett at H-Town Wheelhouse. We are the Locked On Astros podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and make us your first listen every day on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify. And if you get a chance, go ahead and check out Sully over the Locked On MLB podcast. He is the baseball encyclopedia, and he can remember every game that he's ever watched, and it's really impressive. So go check him out, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go Astros.